It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, private investigator Ed Opperman. You can find me at Opperman Investigations and Digital Forensic Consulting, either directly by emailing me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, emailrevealer.com. If you like our show, be sure and check out our Patreon, Opperman Report Patreon. I put up 8 hours of new exclusive content there each week. Okay? And plus all the shows you're hearing right now with no ads, ad-free. So it's a really good value and it helps support the show. Our old archives are all free. You can find them at Spreaker.com with the ads. But we have a good community there. We have a chat room, and you get an email notification anytime I put up new content. And I do a live show there every Friday night exclusively, just a solo show. I just talk about things on my mind. Our guest today is a gentleman from Twitter named Artisan Loaf at Twitter. You can find him there. I came across him because he's a frequent guest with Ocelli and Franz, Aaron Franz, and some other folks over there with the Ocelli group. And he has some interesting things he wants to tell us about Elon Musk. So, Artisan Loaf, are you there?
Hi, Ed. I am here, and thank you very much for having me on your show. I've listened to you quite a few times over the years. I'll be honest, I'm not a consistent listener, but I do really enjoy some of the great work you've done, and thanks a lot for having me on.
Oh, thank you so much. Tell us about yourself. Who is Artisan Loaf?
I am just a regular dude that has been fortunate enough, I guess, to live a sort of fairly interesting life. I've managed to see the world and seen various industries and all levels of society, I guess you could say, and I've been very fortunate enough to look at it in a somewhat detached way. Perhaps this year, like many people, has brought some of us closer to reality than we were before, maybe. And yeah, so I've that's kind of me. I worked all over the place doing all sorts of different things, and I came into the Elon Musk Tesla thing just as a hobby more than anything. I was like, I'm quite interested in the automotive industry and cars and everything, all transport in general. And when you hear a new company coming up doing some interesting things, I was like, oh, I'm really into this. And then it sort of became a sort of a hobby to keep track of it. And then it became for a period of time, it became a bit of an obsession, a bit of a fascination, because Elon Musk is beyond Tesla as a company. The story really is all about Elon Musk as a character. And that has only seemed to sort of snowball really from when I started reading really deeply on this, 3 or 4 years ago.
What is the origin of Elon Musk?
Well, it's the official origin story, as it were, was he founded PayPal.
Oh, really?
Which is not 100% true. He had a company that was called X.com, I think it was his, and they merged with Peter Thiel's company, which then became PayPal. For a brief period of time, Elon Musk was the CEO and chairman, I think, of PayPal, but his terrible sort of business sense meant he got forced out of PayPal by everyone else. But he still, because he was a partner of the merged companies, he still retained quite a large stake in it. So when PayPal eventually got sold, he cashed out to tens of millions of dollars.
But I'm curious, even before PayPal, like what is his childhood? What does his parents do for a living?
That's the more interesting sort of background, because as many people may or may not know, he is a South African immigrant. He was born in South Africa, but his family actually came from the US and Canada originally, emigrated to South Africa. This is where the timeline can be arguably seen as quite important, because his family emigrated to South Africa just as apartheid started, and most of them left just as apartheid ended. So you can make of that what you will. And his father, which is the only side of the family that you really get any kind of dirt from, because they're basically estranged at this point. And his father, had a ownership stake in a emerald mine and was a pilot and things like that. So not exactly from humble beginnings, even if he does try to frame sometimes his, he arrived in North America with a backpack and a dream, is pretty much what he said on Twitter before. But it does kind of undermine the point that he came from a very stable and wealthy family background, if not a happy family. And the reason why he could arrive in North America with basically nothing was because he had a right to Canadian citizenship through birth. So again, not the typical African immigrant story that we tend to associate, and what he wants us, it seems, to believe from the way he's talked about his upbringing. And that's one of the sort of annoying things. Basically, the only sources of information from Elon Musk as a child are from his own family. And they're obviously all very invested in keeping his aura maintained. So yeah, he came from South Africa. I think he left South Africa when he was 16 or 17. And from straight on, it seemed to be he was an entrepreneuring type, and has managed to sort of snowball his way into bigger and better things, usually getting bought out rather than actually making a viable business, it seems. Because only recently has he managed to seemingly turn a profit with Tesla, and even that is very arguable in many ways.
What about any military background, college?
No, he did go to the college in the US. He dropped out. He does have a degree in physics, I think, but he's known for his disdain of the higher education in many ways, because it didn't really work for him. He didn't enjoy it or anything like that. But at the same time, all his companies obviously require people to be fully college educated. So, but as far as I'm aware, he has no military background whatsoever, except obviously he's a military contractor, which is obviously quite a step up from where he's came from. And that's one of the things that I find very frustrating about the people that sort of say the framing of Elon Musk's success, where he came from nothing, where he didn't. But the fact he's still, he came from the 1% and became the 0.0001%. That is an achievement in itself. You don't have to be from nothing for that to be an achievement. So for me, it's just one of those things that I find very frustrating, where people talk about him like he completely did it all by himself, where no, he didn't. He had a very comfortable background to start with, and he had plenty of opportunities to fail and do different things. So it's not the most accurate sort of presentation of where he came from. But yeah, he's an interesting character in that it goes further back as well. His I think it was his grandfather was actually the president or CEO of Technocracy Inc. for the United States when it was sort of an emerging thing. So I don't know if you know anything about that.
No, I'd never heard of Technocracy. No.
Yeah, it was it's a system of government sort of idea of technocracy being instituted as a sort of system of government. It's a little bit more airy-fairy than that, shall we say, but it very much is. I find it quite interesting to say. I think his grandfather was the director or CEO for a period of time, but now if you listen to the way Elon Musk talks about things and his plans for colonizing Mars, it very much seems to follow through in his family lineage to be that kind of, say, technocratic sort of elitist, as it were, if you know what I mean.
And it's interesting because when I asked you, what was his previous employment, you mentioned that he was a CEO of PayPal or ran PayPal. Something. Yeah. He must have started off as an employee somewhere.
No, I don't think he really did.
Really?
He started very. If you go back into sort of the history books of it, he worked out some sort of arbitrage scheme. This was in South Africa when he was a young child, buying candy very cheaply and then going to the rich neighborhoods that he was probably allowed to go into and then selling candy door to door, making loads of money. That was his entrepreneurial start. Then he made some video games, which he sold for, I think, next to nothing, and no one really knows anything about them, but that's part of the official canon of his life. But then when he was in America, studying, that was when he founded his initial company that really started this chain of events that snowballed into becoming Tesla and SpaceX, of a company called Zip2, which is basically like a Yelp kind of directory services website, which he then sold for a considerable amount of money, which is then what he used to fund his version of PayPal, and so it continued on from there. But now he's worth a couple of $100 billion, I think. Now it's hard to keep track because it goes up like every day how many billions of dollars Elon Musk ends up being worth. But considering none of the companies, he can't really show any profitable companies that he's actually run, but he's now got Tesla's now worth $600 billion, I think, today.
Well, before we get to Tesla, what about SpaceX? That can't be making any money.
Well, no, that's they're constantly raising new funding rounds to get their goals, and their theory is, at least on paper, is that because they're reusing all these rockets,
right?
So when no other company reuses the rockets, so if they're reusing the rockets, they're gonna be able to make savings. But it's after people have done the math. They reckon it's after 8 or 10 launches of the same rocket does it start to generate real savings. But it seems like what the company does, at least at the moment, because they've not got anywhere near that, or they've only got maybe one rocket that they've used it more than 5 times. But what they do is they raise money to cover their Mars dreams and whatever other aspirations they have, but then they can use some of that raised capital to subsidize launching rockets for people that cost less than other people. So, which is the same as how basically all of Musk's, well, the Tesla works as well. You raise money from capital markets to subsidize your business, which then you grow, which you can then continue to sell, $1 for 80 cents, which gives you a whole load of revenue, which then says, oh, well, we're just, next time round, we're going to break even and we're going to get over that hump and then we're going to be profitable forevermore. But, you can always push that dream that next quarter out or the next year. With Musk, it's always in a year or 2 years, but that year or 2 years often never comes.
Now, the SpaceX, too, they did this bizarre thing where they launched like a car into space. What was that whole thing?
Right. Well, that was just a test of one of their prototype rockets, and Elon Musk, being, I will give him credit as much as I very much dislike the man. He's a very smart person and saw an opportunity to do a cross-marketing scheme. So they strapped Elon Musk's personal Tesla Roadster, one of the original cars that they made back in 2008 or whenever it was, strap that to a SpaceX rocket for a test, whereas normally if Boeing or someone else was doing a similar test, they would just strap a very large block of concrete to it. They thought, instead of doing that, we'll strap this car to it, and then you've got this massive viral marketing campaign that basically didn't cost Tesla anything and made Tesla, Musk, and SpaceX look pretty cool, because they've launched this car into space and there's video streams of a spacesuited man sitting in this car floating around in the atmosphere.
It's totally bizarre.
Yeah, it's a bit great. It's you remember it. It's like, how many marketing stunts do you remember? But the thing is, Elon Musk is pretty good at that.
Yeah, I remember, but I remember because why the hell did they do it? I'm trying to figure out, Now, and also too, now with Tesla just got a big contract with the NYPD, New York City Police Department. Just bought a whole bunch of Teslas. Do you know anything behind that deal?
I do not know anything behind that deal at all. I do know that the New York and Tesla have an interesting relationship, though, as Tesla has a factory in New York. I think it's in Buffalo. My New York geography is not great. But they basically, with the same as they did with their California factory, they got a very good deal to get this factory. They basically got it for next to nothing. But as part of a state aid package, they were obligated to certain hiring requirements and all these kind of things to say that, it's worth the state's investment into bringing you in as an employer, which obviously we could argue about the goodness of that kind of idea to start with the local governments picking and choosing beneficiaries of subsidies and all that kind of thing. But as would typically be the way, the Tesla really struggled to do anything with this factory by all appearances, and a lot of the time it seems like Musk doesn't even remember that this factory exists, because he visits all the other factories and talks about all the other ones, but he never really talks about what's happening, because he talks about obviously the California factory, what they're doing in Nevada. Obviously now they've got the China factory being it's built, and they've got a German factory coming up, and they're looking at now doing one in Austin, Texas, I think, as well. So they've got all this stuff going on, but for years they've had this factory in New York that doesn't really seem to do all that much. But because obviously the New York government doesn't want to lose face on it, I think at least 3 times now they've reevaluated the agreement Tesla and New York came to for this factory, and steadily eroded the requirements so it doesn't look like the New York state made a bad investment in going, in getting in bed with Tesla. So that's the thing. That's the sort of main thing of Tesla in New York. This specific deal with the NYPD, I don't know, but I would say that there does seem to be quite a few police departments have bought Teslas recently, in the last year or two since the Model 3 came out, to try and improve their public image and say that we're being environmental and green now, we care. So here's a Tesla to show that we're trying to save money and look after our communities and all that sort of thing. So I think that's really what it's about. I don't think Tesla has anything particularly involved with those kind of deals. I think it is just the police seeing, well, we can spend money here on cool things and do a bit of PR at the same time.
Yeah,
which is more than they can do with military-grade equipment, which doesn't look quite so good.
We may be choking you to death, but we're doing the environment. We're helping the environment.
Exactly. No tailpipe emissions while we're beating you to death. That's fine.
Now, when you mentioned Nevada, you're talking about that boring company?
No. In Nevada, Tesla has a factory as well.
Doing what?
They make the batteries in Nevada.
Oh, really? I wasn't aware of that. Okay, that's interesting. In theory, I say I'm not 100% on all this, because I've taken for the last year, especially with everything going on, I've taken a big step back from Tesla, also because it's such a cultural phenomenon. It's very exhausting. It's like trying to follow Trump's daily goings on. If you try and follow, you can follow as a company, which is very strange. There's stuff going on every day with Tesla that you can spend hours reading about and talking about if you so desired. Just realised it wasn't really worth my time to spend quite so much time doing it. So, yeah. Well, I lived in
a little bit roll back from that.
Lived in Nevada for 20 years. I don't recall any Tesla factory ever talking about it.
Obviously, it's only been in the last, I can't remember exactly when it was, but it's been there for a few years, and that's where they make the batteries. So what you have the factory they've got in California, in Fremont. That is where they build the cars. And then in Nevada is where they build the batteries and some components, I think, for the cars. And then in New York is where they're supposed to be building some batteries and the solar roof panels and things like that.
Okay.
So so they have a big factory in Nevada, and that's their sort of their premier one. That's the Gigafactory one. Is the one that's in Nevada. So that's the one that most people sort of think of as the Elon Musk super factory sort of thing. That's the one that they're talking about rather than the one in California.
Hey, what do we know about his personal life? Is he married?
He's been married 2 or 3 times. And this is one of those sort of things which a lot of the Elon Musk fan base really treats him like he's just this sort of socially awkward, humble engineer type that just wants to be in his lab working away on his crazy inventions to make the world a better place. But at the same time, when he's doing that, he basically exclusively dates pop stars and supermodels and actresses. So doesn't really follow through on the sort of image that a lot of people want him to have as this just, say he's just about the science. He's not about status and things like that. He's just wanting to make cool things and do that, when that's really not his, so he's very keen to be the center of attention in any given situation, which is not that humble engineer type that some people say try and sort of put on him. But he has been married a couple of times, and this is one of the interesting, one of the sort of key examples of the part of the Musk mentality is, I believe it was on their wedding night or on their honeymoon with one of his first wives, he said to her, don't forget I'm the alpha in this relationship. And on another occasion he said apparently to her that if you were one of my employees I would have fired you already. Which is, in these two sort of statements, a very interesting approach to a holy union between two people. It's, I think that says a lot about sort of his mentality, and that does seem to be how he views it, and that's, I think, comes from the PayPal situation when he got forced out of PayPal. He has since made it sure that he can never be in a situation where anyone can stop him doing what he wants again, or take away his companies from him. So he's very much now a complete control freak because he lost some of it once.
Since he's in a defense contractor now, any indications of him being like a CIA front, an intelligence front?
Well, I think his connection to Peter Thiel is probably the strongest one in that regard. I don't really think he's an intelligence front or anything like that, because he seems like he's just too much of a liability, because he just says too many stupid things too often. Obviously, that would be a really great, a great cover for it, but with how sort of systemically important this buffoon effectively is, I just find it very hard to believe that he's actively working, he's knowingly for some sort of intelligence agency. But I think his say Peter Thiel was the other main co-founder of PayPal with him. There were other people involved as well. I don't want to say there wasn't anyone else. It wasn't, but they are the two people that outshone everyone else after the fact, effectively. So obviously we know Peter Thiel's very now deep into that kind of world. So I'm sure he's aware of it, and Elon Musk has definitely many dealings with them, but I don't think he's an active agent, as it were. I think he may well be a patsy later on. I don't have much, because I don't think he's got the mentality for it, to be honest. Because I don't think he's too impulsive.
Now, off the air before we started, you had mentioned there's some kind of connection between Elon Musk and the right-wing conservative, highly litigious defamation lawyer Lin Wood, who now is working on the ballots, lawsuits there down in Georgia, all over the place. What's their connection?
Well, this is one of my sort of little things in life now that I will forever be annoyed about, is that I will always know who Lin Wood is. That's just one of the things I now have to carry with me as a burden for the rest of my life. But Lin Wood was the lawyer for Vern Unsworth, who was the guy Elon Musk called a pedophile on Twitter. And Lin Wood was the lawyer sent, to represent the defamed party in this case, and completely ruined the whole thing. I know people that provided evidence and organised things to try and help them make this case. It was, a serious defamation case. Because he effectively ruined the guy's life.
Well, why don't we describe that first? The whole the cave, the kids that were stranded in a cave, and there was like a battle back and forth between how to rescue these kids. So tell that story first.
Doesn't it feel like so long ago?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So there was these kids trapped in this cave in Thailand. I can't remember exactly why they were there. I think they were on a school trip or something to these caves, and they got trapped. And in the process of international effort to try and rescue these poor kids, Elon Musk got involved with some wild ideas of how to save them, and ended up taking up a load of, because all of a sudden the world's most interesting billionaire has stepped into the fray, and he's coming up with all these, sci-fi ideas of how they could save these kids, whereas other people are actually working on saving the kids rather than finding, trying to be clever about it. And after they managed to rescue the kids and all that without Elon Musk's help. And then at the end of it, one of the UK news networks interviewed one of the people involved in the rescue. One of the people, I think, he actually found where the kids were to start with. He wasn't a diver actually rescuing the kids physically, but he was that knew the caves well enough and worked out where the kids were so they could rescue them. An important person in the story. And he was interviewed by the UK media, and they asked him what he thought of Elon Musk. And Vern Unsworth said basically that it was all, he was just trying to get publicity for himself, and he can Elon Musk can put his submarine where it hurts. Because, so he really wasn't a fan. And that was it. It was, a 5-second clip of, it was all I think it was a big publicity stunt. He can shove his submarine. And Elon Musk obviously found out about this and then just went on a Twitter tirade, basically making a lot of sort of inferences and things that because Mr. Unsworth was living in Thailand, that he is, a child rapist, pedophile, all that kind of thing. And kept doubling down on it. He doubled down on this sort of accusation, very, very, very thinly veiled accusation, 3 or 4 times, and even then said, "Sue or it's true." And much time passes. The guy then Unsworth does actually sue, and Lin Wood happened to be the lawyer representing Lin Wood, Vern Unsworth, which thought was going to be people watching the case thought, well, this is good because Lin Unsworth at this point had a very good reputation. And when we actually went to trial, and he didn't even really seem to understand how Twitter works, which wasn't very helpful. And I think that someone had to explain to, the judge and to Lin Wood about how Twitter actually works to try and get this, get through the evidence and all this stuff in the case. And he made a complete, mess up of it and didn't present a good case. Or the way that it was presented and the amount of damages they were asking for meant it was ludicrous. It was a ridiculous situation. And at the end of it, Musk got cleared. And it didn't really help, I think, in some ways that basically they ran out of jury pool that wasn't in some way connected to Tesla and Musk, because they'd gone through a bunch of, when they were selecting the jury pool for this trial, a bunch of people had got, thrown out for various reasons, and then they still ended up with, I think the foreman on the jury was a Tesla owner and things like that. So it was this is a problem when you're trying a case in California where is the biggest market for Tesla and Elon Musk fanatics. So.
This is fascinating because I'm looking this up, and it says the defamation case began in December 2019. Lin Wood is on Twitter 24 hours a day now. He must have really, really enjoyed that lesson he got, man. Because I don't think he's gotten off.
No, he very much hasn't. I might say one of my now claims to fame is I got blocked by Lin Wood before anyone knew who he was, because after the Elon Musk trial, I tweeted at him, so if we were unsure if you're incompetent, that trial really confirmed it for us, something along those lines, and he blocked me for that. So, which is really annoying now, because I've been missing all the stuff that he's been saying on Twitter with all the Trump stuff, because he's blocked me prior to all this. So.
Yeah, no, you're missing a lot of good stuff. But the thing is, you were working for the plaintiff in that case? You were assisting him in some way?
No, I know people that were trying to, okay. And were collating information and evidence to be presented, hopefully. Because so obviously Elon Musk has such a massive reach, and part of the idea of the defamation is, did people believe that the accusation was true? So some people got together and found various blogs and people writing on Twitter and Facebook of people taking Musk's statements and then going, look, Musk is saying this, and he's a very smart, intelligent man, so he must. The amount of people that said, well, he must know something because he wouldn't have said it otherwise, and look at all the resources he's got, so there must be something to these accusations and things like that. So yeah, people work to present a lot of information parceled it up for Lin Wood, and he apparently didn't take any of it, and just say, if you go back to the reporting of the case, you can just see of what a complete shambles it was. But the key point is to this: at the end of it, Lin Wood took to Twitter and basically did a what it's called a reflections from the lake, where he basically said, really enjoyed that, it was a lot of fun, Musk was right, he was a good person. he basically just said, "Oh, the trial was an interesting thought exercise. I'm glad the result was what it was." After he just lost and Musk got away with calling someone a child molester. It's like, well, and that was then the descent into. After that was then basically straight away. Then Lin Wood went into the trajectory he's on now. So his reflections from the lake were very weird. It was not the sort of concession that you would expect. It was so deferential and basically groveling to Musk. It felt like to me, and I think to a lot of people that were following it quite closely at the time, that there was some kind of blackmail involved.
This is fascinating because I'm reading the Wikipedia page, and there's a quote in here. I'm not going to read it on the air because it's so. This accusation he made against this diver is so harmful that I'm really surprised that he did lose this case.
It's the most. If a defamation case exists that is possible to win, in my mind, that was it. It's so blatant. It's so there. It's an open and shut case. I'm not a lawyer, but it's how can you argue with that?
Musk sent a very accusatory email to the BuzzFeed news reporter, but he put off the record on it. But it doesn't matter because you're still telling a third party a defamatory. I
forgot all about that. But that email by itself, stands as everything, and the fact that he hired private investigators to go after, and that was a good one. Musk got scammed by a dodgy private investigator person that was based in the UK or something. And Musk to send him $50,000 to come up with some evidence, supporting the accusation.
Oh,
and
really?
The guy didn't do anything. He just took $50,000 off it, basically. And he was just saying it was some, UK.
It says something. He was a convicted felon.
That's the idea. He had some criminal background, but he was up. He managed to come over credibly, I guess, to say that he could dig up some dirt, and that was it. Just got took for $50,000 off it. So
Okay,
this is an interesting story.
That is an interesting story.
Well, yes. That's my father's name. I think social media obviously has become ever more so, and especially this year has become a very important part to, I think, many people's, if not the majority of people's lives. And as we've seen with probably people that we both talked about quite a lot, of Trump and Musk, they very much use social media as their primary method of engagement with the general public. And having that direct line is amazing. I don't know how much you use Twitter or not, but Twitter as a platform just in itself, the fact that you can reach out to pretty much anyone that you want to, and if you've got something vaguely valuable or worth listening to say to them, they're going to see it and probably respond or give you some kind of feedback of what you said. And it's just amazing to have that connection there, that you can, if you do have an idea or something really important that you want to share with a politician or a journalist or or a scientist at this point, if we're talking about a pandemic, you can reach out to these people now more easily than you've ever been able to do, which I think is an amazing thing. But then we have the other side of it that really seems to be very concerning now, especially when we, the year that we've had, where people are now only getting their information filtered through Twitter and Facebook, and we're getting ever more into these little corners of these worlds. And we have no way of really, the average person has no way to easily or even accurately weight the value of the information that they're being presented. And we see things like this with the pandemic. The amount of people that, I would have thought are very intelligent, reasonable people until this year, where they're now retweeting and reposting screenshots of COVID or Trump conspiracy theory stuff. And it's spreading so far and so much, and I really don't see how we can step back from this sort of the abyss that we're looking into with it, because there's just, as I'm sure you know yourself, an overload of information constantly. You're never short of information, and if you want information that just constantly reinforces your pre-existing ideas, there are corners of the internet that are going to do it for you. And when easy ideas are easy to sell, and that's obviously what a lot of people are taking on now. And to me, it's absolutely terrifying, the number of people that are just searching the internet for confirmation bias and becoming so entrenched in circular logic and their existing views.
This is something we've been talking about for years, because a friend of mine, Corey Levitin, was a columnist, years ago did that hoax about saying how they found sperm in a Monster drink, and it made Rockstar or whatever it was, and it made the rounds all over the place. So we've been talking about this for years. And what I used to do, back when Facebook was early, in the early, like 2006, 2007, if I was arguing with somebody about a topic, I would just create a blog, for 10 minutes, Blogspot, Journal of Scientific Research in the title. Type a couple of lines, and the link would show up with the title, and I'd say, read this article, it's all in there. And no one would even click on it and see that it was a total bogus link.
Source is a source, yeah.
Yeah, you just need the title.
We've come so far from that now, where you don't even need to put that much effort into it. You can literally write something in Notepad or in Word, take a screenshot of it, and then take a picture of your screenshot, and then post that, and then suddenly it becomes verified information.
Or worse, a meme. People take these memes and they think that's a source. No one checks anything anymore.
And I think, for the average person, so I find it very difficult for myself that someone reasonably engaged with it. Say over the last year or so, I've taken a real big step back, not only from the Tesla Elon Musk thing, but from following the news in general, because it's just exhausting. It's this. So I think that's part of the design of it. It just wears you down. If you try to follow current events every day, it's a full-time job just to even try and be aware of what's going on, I think, without actually getting anywhere with it. So, and now we'd say people are getting this super condensed, completely unsourced, unverifiable rumor mill that is now Facebook. It seems Facebook seems to be the biggest perpetuator of this meme news, viral story kind of way that we now people consume information. Just say people that are completely, they're not on the message boards deep into the QAnon stuff or anything like that. They're just people that are just on Facebook and seeing something that was posted by their cousin. They go, oh, well, that makes sense. It's about, the Democrats and Bill Gates. Well, I'm going to send that to everyone I know. And it just snowballs from there. But it doesn't, there's no basis to it. It's literally just someone writing a few things in Word and then sending it out there and just saying, well, that's probably true, isn't it? We all, the message is the truth, not the details.
Right. Remember a few years back, Bill Gates gave a commencement speech at a graduation speech, and then you tell him, no, Bill Gates never said any of that. But they'll say, it doesn't matter because I agree with the sentiment. I agree with it. Doesn't matter that it's made up and it's fake. That's what I agree. It's just the most bizarre thing. And this can't be by accident, because they got the internet, the advertising on the internet, they got us so data mined, they could stop that if they wanted to. They could wipe all that out and scrub it, if they wanted to. It's like years ago, I stumbled on this thing on YouTube where there were all these videos of kids, usually clothed, but dancing around provocatively and stuff like that, and 3 million hits. 3 million hits, 8 million hits, and every comment in the thing was about masturbating and all this kind of stuff. There's no way they could not stop that content. Some of these videos you had to prove you were an adult to click on it of an 8-year-old kid in a swimming pool. So it's not like they don't know,
Oh, they know.
Yeah,
they know. They say it's just I don't know about those specific situations, but I think especially in the politics stuff. This is what platforms like Twitter thrive on. The misinformation is engagement. It's like people are incentivized to give bad opinions. That's the amazing thing that we have. People are, it's incentivized for people to say something that they know is probably shouldn't say on Twitter, but it's going to generate so much reaction. You're going to get all that engagement. You're going to get the views. You're going to get reactions. People are going to talk about you. It's going to boost your profile, and that's sort of. I think that's quite separate, really, to what we were talking about before. But that is what people are effectively encouraged to do now, to give their worst opinions to the world and then try and defend them. But
there's also this unwritten unwritten thing going on, right? That if you're arguing with somebody and they have like 10,000 followers, there's that unspoken intimidation that, hey, man, if you and me get into an argument, 10,000 people are going to be storming all over you, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing to say that Elon Musk does very well, is he's done that on many occasions, where he will call out someone for, there was someone that wrote an article that he didn't like. He will call them out on Twitter. But obviously he's calling them out with his now, I think, 17 or 20 million people that follow him. And some of them, are effectively in a cult at this point because they think he is the only person that can save humanity from global warming and climate change and all that kind of thing. So he has, and that's, people have been, very seriously harassed in many ways by Elon Musk personally, sending his dogs after them, even, not explicitly saying, oh, go and mess this dude up. But
you don't have to.
If you say, this person is attacking me and being very unfair, when you're saying that to 17 million people and a good, 100,000 plus of them, think you're the best person alive, you're going to get a strong reaction from that. So it's very difficult to criticize certain levels of people on the internet because of that. And you have a complete disparity in the dialogue. You can't have a reasonable conversation when one person holds so much power on the platform.
Yeah, it's an unspoken intimidation. Now, he has that many followers? So he has 17 million?
I will check right now.
I wonder why. I mean, that's
well, he's a very interesting person. So what's he up now? He's 41 million followers.
Really?
Yep.
That's fascinating. I can't imagine.
Because he's a meme of a person. He's out there tweeting memes and making memes himself, making himself a meme in some situations. That he very much captures a certain energy of, unfortunately, internet troll culture, I think, in many ways. And the fact that he is, the person that is offering hope, and he's about the only person, offering secular hope, as it were. I think that's a thing, whereas, obviously, in a society now, we have much moved away from organised religion as defining people's lives, and there's a lot more people that are agnostic or atheist or whatever. And Elon Musk is a person that is effectively offering hope and something to believe in to people that don't have that cultural touchstone of a religion.
Hey, real quick, because we're running out of time, you mentioned before something about mining on the moon, and I let it slip right past. Or Mars? What is that going on?
Yeah, well, they say there's various rare earth and special things on Mars and the moon and things like that. And if you wanna, Musk wants to colonize Mars. He thinks Earth is doomed or is eventually going to be doomed. So we need to establish colonies on Mars. And obviously there's going to be resources there that we can exploit to make Mars a better place. So that's the stretch goal, as you could put it, I guess, for Musk's plans, is that we're actually all going to live on Mars in the end.
I never understood that, because if we have to build a dome on Mars in order to breathe, why can't we just build that dome down here? That's
the way I look at it as well.
Yeah.
It's like, well, if we can go to the effort of making Mars habitable, surely we can just make this place livable.
The whole thing is crazy. So listen, we're down to the last 2 minutes. What do you want to leave us with, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to talk to you?
If they want to talk to me, say I'm on Twitter at Artisan Loaf. I say I don't have anything to sell or promote, and I generally try and keep it that way, because I find it a bit awkward to be like, buy my book or do this or subscribe to my Patreon or whatever. I would just say, if you want to talk to me, follow me on Twitter. That's the only place you will really find me. I'm not on any other platforms. Otherwise, that's about it. Just support Ed, support the show, and that's it. Don't worry about me. Support Ed instead.
Yeah, I'll second that one. Go to my Patreon, and you can also go to silkcityhotsauce.com, and if you put in promo code Ed, you get a free bottle of hot sauce, and you get 15% off your order.
That sounds perfect for me. I'm going to do that right now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Mr. Loaf, thank you so much. Keep in touch.
Thank you, Matt.
Good night.